Tinubu's real troubles are just beginning by Farouk Barugi. In light of his planned astronomical hike in petrol prices, euphemistically called subsidy removal in 2023, which his opponent also promised to implement and cost Nigerians embrace as inevitable and desirable, I foretold the imminent social convulsion that is gathering momentum across Nigeria now. I can assure Tinubu that if petrol price hikes deepen people's misery, he will have a tough time governing. I wrote in my April 29, 2023 column. I followed this up with more than half a dozen columns on the same theme. When you remove subsidies from an all-important product like petrol that literally regulates every facet of life in the country, like Nigeria, which also has the dubious honor of being in perpetual competition with India for the status of the world poverty capital, and then follow it up with a massive devaluation of the national currency, even when the country is hopelessly import dependent, you unleash existential demons that compel vast swaths of people to choose between life and death. False assurances that the mass agony in the country is only temporary, or that the pains people are grappling with are mere precursors to future gains, or even that there is a light at the end of a tunnel, only aggravate people's anger. There are two reasons for this. 1. Most people know that based on past experiences in Nigeria, notably during IBB's ruinous SAP, which Tinubu merely repurposed and renamed, and elsewhere in the developing world, where the IMF and World Bank dictate economic policies, there's never been a single example of this sort of pains ever transforming into gains for the masses of the people. Second, people outside the circles of power and privilege realize that the pains are being borne only by the poor. Tinubu, for example, bought a new presidential jet worth millions of dollars, and even before the spineless National Assembly had a chance to rubber stamp it, as is now their want among other profligate expenditures amid a biting economic downturn. People who are visiting darkness on the poor in the name of a deferred light at the end of a tunnel are glowing in incandescent bulbs of illumination, and the people are intelligent enough to know that what awaits them at the end of this disconsolate tunnel is not light. It is an inferno. It is a dreary snake pit of doom and gloom. When people come to this realization, no one needs to sponsor them to protest. The pangs of hunger they feel is sufficient to sponsor them to protest. The sensation of hopelessness that overcomes them is a bigger motive force for protest than the political machinations of any politician. But even if it is true that opposition politicians are taking advantage of those mass discontent in the country to cripple the government and delegitimize it for their self-interest, that is not illegal. It is an intrinsic element of democracies for opposition parties to seize on the missteps of incumbents to displace them. President Tinubu is in power today precisely because he mastered the art of instrumentalizing the missteps of incumbents to advance his political aspirations. As recently as 2012, he sponsored a disruptive protest against former President Goodluck Jonathan that led to the death of protesters for precisely what he is doing to Nigerians now. No amount of persuasion or financial inducement or traditional rulers, religious clerics, union leaders, or activists will get people to make peace with needless suffering occasioned by self-centered, hard-hearted implementation of vicious economic policies that snub the life out of the people. Even the planned protests are aborted. The predictable is only being postponed. The only way Tinubu can retain legitimacy and then the trust of the people is to reverse the deep, stinging hurt his policies have caused to the vast majority of our people. People are no longer interested in progress or the renewal of hope. They just want Tinubu to take them back to where he met them, which was not an enviable state. And that is not too much to ask. In a February 10, 2024 column titled Hunger Protests, Why Tinubu Cannot Govern Like Buhari, I said the spontaneous hunger-induced eruption of sitting communal anger in Minna, Suleja, Kano, and Osogbo were a warning sign that Tinubu could not afford to ignore. He ignored it. He is probably allowing the Buhari template of enacting unpopular policies and relying on the blind support of his worshippers to shield him from the consequences of his actions. But Tinubu had no such following, and I am glad he doesn't, which is why I would hate for someone like P2B or Robi Kwankwaso to be president. They are political cult leaders with unthinking, fanatical followers who lose their damn mind if you as much utter the mildest critical remark about their gods. However factual it may be, like Buhari's, they have abdicated their senses to their political gods. I reproduce here a portion of a column to remind Tinubu why he cannot benefit from the kind of immunity Buhari enjoyed. Had the current president been Muhammadu Buhari and not Bola Ahmed Tinubu, chances are that the worst would happen amid the adversity people are going through now would be suppressed, barely audible murmurs. It is because Buhari is a political cult leader with a firm grip on his followers who worship him and surrender responsibility for their lives over to him. Tinubu has no such appeal. A psychologist by the name Steve Taylor came up with a concept he called abdication syndrome when he said which he said disposes people to invest total childlike trust in a political figure, a cult leader, an opinion molder, etc., in ways that mimic how children idolize and idolize their parents as unblemished paragons of perfection. According to Taylor, abdication syndrome stems from the unconscious desire of some people to return to a state of early childhood when their parents were infallible, omnipotent figures who controlled their lives and protected them from the world. They are trying to rekindle that childhood state of unconditional devotion and irresponsibility. Buhari was lucky to benefit from abdication syndrome in Muslim northern Nigeria, broadly conceived, which explains why he got away with murder for 8 years. When he increased petrol prices by a steep margin in 2016, for instance, there were protests in Kano, Bauchi, and other places of support of the increase and against people who protest against the increase, who protested the increase. Nigeria had never seen anything like that before. Even protests against the unabating descent of the northern Nigeria into a theater of bloodshed and abduction on Buhari's watch provoked counter-protests from people who have abdicated the use of their brains in the service of Buhari. Tinubu not only does not have the benefit of the abdication syndrome anywhere in Nigeria, but he has the misfortune of having to contend with a peculiar character of Muslim northern Nigeria. We feel the pain of and react violently to bad policies only when the policies are hatched and executed by people who have no affiliation with our natal region. It is no surprise that hunger protests against the Tinubu administration started from and spread in the north, a powerful indication of Tinubu's lack of firm emotional support base emerged when Osun, his state of birth where he lost his last presidential election to PDP Atiku Abubakar, became the first southern state to join the hunger protests. Should the resistance to his punishingly heartless neoliberal economic policies ignite a nationwide convulsion, the Southwest is unlikely to constitute itself as his bulwark. Alright, on this note, you have come to the end of the news. We say thank you for tuning in to listen. Until I come here next time, enjoy the rest of